In the stillness of an early autumn morning, when the mist curled low over the forest floor and golden leaves whispered secrets with every gust of wind, a young male deer, majestic yet fragile, emerged from the woods. His fur was roughened by brambles, his antlers scarred from battles of survival, and his eyes, deep, brown, trembling, held the kind of pain that only desperation could etch. This was not a deer wandering aimlessly for food or shelter. He was searching for something far more unlikely in the wild. A human's help. He limped through the clearing, one leg injured and bleeding, a dark trail marking his every hesitant step. The forest, once his sanctuary, had become an echo chamber of fear. Days ago, he had escaped a hunter's trap, a cruel metal snare that had bitten deep into his flesh. Somehow he had freed himself, but the price was agony. Now his wound festered, the pain unbearable. Instinct drove him toward the edge of the woods, toward the scent of something unfamiliar, yet strangely comforting. Smoke, the faint hum of voices, the world of humans. At the outskirts of a small rural village, the deer appeared like a ghost from another realms. Farmers were beginning their day, the sound of roosters breaking the silence, when one man looked up and froze. Standing in the middle of the dirt road, framed by the soft light of dawn, was the wounded deer. His chest rose and fell rapidly, his eyes pleading not in aggression, but in sorrow. For a moment, the man didn't move, unable to comprehend what he saw. A wild animal seemingly begging for mercy. The deer took a slow step forward, head lowered as if saying, "Please, help me." But fear spread faster than compassion. A shout echoed, "Watch out, it's wild!" The man grabbed a stick, waving it in the air to keep the animal away. Others gathered, confusion growing among them. To them, the deer was dangerous, unpredictable, maybe even diseased. The young buck, sensing rejection, flinched and backed away, limping harder now, his wound reopening. His heart raced, not from anger, but heartbreak. The creature that had trusted, that had crossed the boundary between wild and human, was being driven away. The villagers clapped, shouted, and threw small stones to scare him off. The deer turned and staggered toward the forest again, disappearing into the thicket as the echoes of human voices faded behind him. But the memory lingered, a brief moment where help was near, yet unreachable. In his pain, the deer found refuge under a large oak tree. He lay down, exhausted, as raindrops began to fall through the canopy. The cold stung his wound, but worse was the ache inside. The loneliness, the rejection. Hours passed, and the forest shifted from light to dusk. The deer's breathing slowed, his world dimmed. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, and the first drops of a heavy storm began to fall. In that moment of fading strength, he lifted his head and saw something. A soft light moving between the trees. It was the same man who had first seen him, carrying a lantern and a bucket. The man's conscience had not allowed him to rest. He had followed the faint trail of blood and hoof prints. Praying he wasn't too late, when he found the deer, the sight nearly broke him. The creature lay trembling, its sides heaving, the wound swollen and raw. The man knelt slowly, speaking softly as if to a frightened child. "Easy now, I'm not here to hurt you." The deer blinked, his breathing shallow, yet he did not move away. The man gently poured water into a small bowl and pushed it toward him. For a moment, time held still, as the deer lowered his head and drank. It was a fragile moment of trust, a bond forming between two souls from different worlds. The man cleaned the wound as best he could, using an old cloth, an herbal salve his grandmother had once taught him to make. The deer winced but stayed still, his eyes fixed on the man's face. Rain soaked them both, the world around turning grey. Yet in that small corner of the forest, kindness bloomed. When he was done, the man stood and said quietly, "You'll live, my friend. But you must stay hidden. The others, they won't understand. He took a step back, and for a brief second, it felt as though they truly understood each other. The human who found mercy, and the animal who had dared to believe in it. Days turned into weeks. The man often returned to the edge of the forest with food. Apples, carrots, sometimes even a handful of oats. The deer would appear cautiously from the shadows, his limp lighter each day, his eyes calmer. Slowly, he began to heal, though the scar remained, a silent reminder of both cruelty and compassion. The villagers, noticing the man's strange routine, began to whisper. Some said he was foolish to feed a wild beast. Others said he was kind. He didn't care. All he knew was that every time he looked into the deer's eyes, he saw something deeply human. Trust, gratitude, and the quiet strength to survive. But peace in nature is fragile. One morning, a group of hunters arrived from a neighboring town, eager for game. They moved through the forest with rifles gleaming, dogs barking, their laughter echoing through the trees. The man heard them from his field and felt a chill run down his spine. Without a second thought, he dropped everything and ran toward the woods, heart pounding. He knew who they would find. The deer heard the dogs first. He stood frozen, muscles tense, the old fear returning. His instincts screamed to run, but his leg, still not fully strong, betrayed him. The hunters spotted movement and raised their rifles. A shot rang out, splitting the forest stillness. The deer bolted, crashing through the undergrowth, pain tearing through his side as the bullet grazed him. Panic fueled him until he reached the clearing, the same place where months ago he had begged for help. This time, he had no choice but to fight for his life. As the hunters closed in, the man appeared from behind the trees, shouting for them to stop. Don't shoot! Leave him! His voice thundered with anger. The hunters hesitated, surprised. That's my land, the man continued, and that deer's under my protection. The tension hung thick in the air until, grumbling, the hunters lowered their weapons and turned away. The dogs barked, but were pulled back. When silence returned, the man turned toward the deer, who was trembling, eyes wide with terror. Slowly, he stepped closer and whispered, "You're safe now. You're safe." This time the deer didn't flee. He simply stood there, rain soaking his fur, and bowed his head slightly, as if in thanks. The man smiled faintly, his heart heavy but full. From that day on, the deer never strayed too far from the forest's edge, and every dawn, when the world was still asleep, the man would see him standing by the tree line, watching silently, before vanishing back into the mist. Seasons passed. The wound healed completely, though the limp never faded entirely. He grew stronger, his antlers larger, his spirit calmer. The villagers began to notice him again, this time not as a threat, but as a symbol. A few even left food by the fields, children waving when they caught a glimpse of his golden brown coat. The story of the pleading deer spread quietly, a tale of trust, fear, rejection, and redemption. Some said the animal had been sent as a reminder that compassion was the bridge between man and nature. One winter evening, under a sky painted with fading light, the man stood by the edge of his field, watching as the deer appeared one last time. The air was still, the world blanketed in snow. Their eyes met, a silent farewell passing between them. The deer turned toward the forest, strong and proud, and disappeared into the white expanse. The man stood there long after, feeling both sadness and peace. He knew he might never see the creature again, but he also knew their paths had crossed for a reason. Somewhere deep in the woods, the deer found a new herd. His story whispered among the rustling leaves, and though he had once been chased away and broken, he carried with him the memory of a human's kindness, the light that had saved him when the world turned dark. It was proof that even in the harsh wilderness, compassion could bloom where fear once lived. and on nights when the moon hung full and bright, villagers would sometimes hear soft footsteps near the edge of the forest, a reminder that the bond between man and nature, once broken, could always be healed again through the simplest of miracles, a helping hand and a heart that dares to care.